Sean, what's up, my friend?
What's up, brother? What's up? How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. I am trying to figure out this whole.
This thing's pretty cool.
Okay, here we go. Hang on. Looks like
Ian Ralph, what's up, buddy?
I don't think they can. Ian, are you in here?
He's in the chat. It says yo yo.
Oh, I see. Hang on. Let's see if we can't get SPG added. There we go. Will you refresh and double check? Ian, if you're in there, man, see if you can log in to SPG and see if it's working for you.
Let's see.
All right. I just got confirmation. We're good in all of our locations. Sean, man, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you?
Dude, I'm excited. I'm super duper excited. You and I, we haven't had a ton of time to spend getting to know each other, but the few times that we've spent together, I feel like we have gotten to know each other pretty personally. I see we're also both currently rocking Revolt shirts. So, dude, there's people whose stories when you hear it, it's like I don't know. There's like I feel compelled like to get your story out, to push you because what you've been through is incredible. So I want to dive in. I want to share for everybody who's here. I'd like you to share rather who you are, and I'm not gonna do a ton of setup. We're just gonna go in because your story speaks for itself. Um, who are you? Like what? Who are you today? What are you doing with your life right now? And then we'll transition. Let's go backwards from there.
Okay. So I'm Sean Winkle. I'm the general sales manager with Cornerstone Construction here in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's actually Cornerstone Roofing and Solar now. I guess we've kind of made that transition. So I've been quite successful as a sales rep with them. I'm a father now, and I'm a family guy. It's been a cool change. It's really kind of cool to even be able to say that, I got my girls and my son, and we just work hard every day and train a sales team, and we go crush big numbers,
So when you say, when you say big numbers, the first time I ever heard your name, somebody was like, "Yeah, this guy closed $1 million in a month."
Yeah.
And if there's anybody in roofing or solar right now, like the first threshold is $1 million in a year.
Yeah.
Like that's where you become like, oh, I'm a player, right? That's the number where most people want to hit. And I hear this guy closed $1 million in a month. So, dude, I don't know if we want to jump into it now. Like, do you want to speak to kind of like what's your world like right now? Like, why are you?
Yeah, so we can kind of hit on that a little bit too. Like, we started our dive into solar in January of 2022 this year, right? We had done a couple of jobs prior to that, and they didn't go the best. I was kind of discouraged about solar myself because I didn't know all the rules and ins and outs. And I've come to find that anytime I'm discouraged about something, it's usually because I didn't educate myself and figure out, exactly what's going on, so I can be confident about it. And so we wanted this cool solar sales team. We kind of partnered up with some guys out of California, and I knew that in order for me solar sales is different than roofing. Roofing, you can train somebody, you can get somebody kind of in the door off the streets and that has never done it before, and get them making a decent living, fairly decent, and it's different in the solar world. Solar is very easy to hire some people that aren't the best and they aren't the best at being honest and open mind and willing to make sure that those people are getting the real benefit from solar than it is to just go out and start ripping people off, So we wanted to align that with who we are as Cornerstone. And I knew that in order for me to even have a chance at getting decent sales reps as a sales manager that I had to have numbers to show, right? And so I started diving real big into self-education and chasing guys like Jake Hess knowledge in the solar roofing world. And come February 1, I was like, all right, I'm crushing this month. I'm not touching roofs. I really kind of almost turned my back on the sales team a little bit in the roofing world, just to go out and crush these big numbers, and ended up doing and prior to that, me and Tony Alexander out of Charleston, he got in the chat one day in the Cornerstone team, and he was like, oh, I'm going to beat him this month, and you can't do it like I can, and blah, 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 blah. And I just take that stuff to heart. You know what I mean? I mean, like when I get told something like that, it's like a stab in my soul. You know what I mean? And so I went out there and I did like 1.07 mil or something like that. I closed in the month of February. And come next month, beginning into March, early April, I had hired, the 4 or 5 top reps for the Sun Pro here in the region. And now here we are, so.
That's awesome, man. So that's where you are now. Sales manager, Cornerstone Construction, Cornerstone Roofing and Solar, Little Rock, Arkansas. But that's not the story. I guess I'll touch on where I first met you. We were at the Cornerstone. I was invited to come out and just hang out with the Cornerstone team at, what is that place? Maury's Outdoor.
Maury's.
Another
sweet place.
It is super cool. It's like 3,000 acres with big ponds and rope swings, and they've got hog hunting and all kinds of stuff. So I bump into you, and of course, the team, there's this looming thing over this entire event. There's 40 people there, 50 people there.
Yeah.
And there was this kind of looming like that's the guy. And I had never met you in person at that point. But the rumor was that guy's going to be dead in just a few weeks. So can you talk about, I don't know, what was going through your mind around that time?
Okay.
And I mean, I guess we'll just dive right off into it.
I was leading into that from the start,
Let's do it.
And it's kind of great after we just talked about the $1 million month. February ends, March starts, because we're all fired up. I mean, the new year, we're rocking and rolling down here in Arkansas, and everybody's excited. Cornerstone as a whole in general is excited. We're going off down here, and so I'm a huge motorcycle. I love motorcycles, man. It was a passion of mine, and I rode like an idiot a lot. You know what I mean? I really did. And March 17th, I did. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was on 1,000cc sport bikes for a reason, and March 17th, I'm leaving the office, and a lady running. She was texting and driving. She was like 23. She ran a red light, and I T-boned her, flew over her car, and had a head-on collision with the front of an F-150 in my body. And so that was, of course, I don't remember a moment of that. Only reason I know that is because they got security footage from off of the Firestone that's at the 4-way right there.
You got a video of that?
Yeah, I don't have a copy of it, but they brought it up to the hospital, and after I woke up and stuff, and let us see it. But I'm trying to get it. I got Rainwater Holding Section. They're going to try to get it for me. But so I had 13 surgeries. My entire right rib cage was blown up into shrapnel. And all those little pieces of bones kind of stabbed my organs, right? So I lost my spleen and my gallbladder, and broke my chest plate and my diaphragm, cracked my sternum, and two titanium ribs in my left, 12 in my right. My entire right rib cage is metal now. Lost my spleen, gallbladder, and then it cut my liver in half, right? It was a stage 5 laceration on my liver. And so, of course, I was in a coma for like,
I didn't even know they had 5 stages of lacerations for the liver.
Yeah, man. It was basically, it was just cut in half, and your liver is like the one organ you got that can regenerate itself. It can rebuild itself. But it's supposed to be by lobe, right? You cut it vertically. That's why you do a liver transplant. They get or a full liver. Or if you donate the liver, you can donate half of it. You cut it vertical. Your right lobe goes to the person who needs it, and then yours will grow back. Well, mine was cut the other way. And so they didn't think it was going to grow back. They didn't think that it was gonna. So basically, it was a 12-week expiration date when I walked out of the hospital. And so, and I'm usually, I can usually be real, determined regardless, right? But I had, for something about this idea that they had put in my mind, I manifested to reality pretty bad, right? Like I had turned it, I believed it. Like I believed I was gone, and
Can I just ask, because I know I'm curious and I'm assuming other people are curious too, because like that's one of the questions that, like, I don't know, just people talking fireside, just people, that's something they think about is their mortality. So like, what were you really, really going through, as much as you're willing to share,
man,
when you're talking about that?
So that was the man. I've been through a lot of things in my life. You know what I mean? And I had still been at that time, before the wreck, had still been going through, some pretty rough stuff that I was trying to fight through still. And the mental just agony, you know what I mean? Like, not only are you going through trying to recover on 13 surgeries with freaking Tylenol, you know what I mean? Because I wouldn't let them give me no narcotics. I'm sitting here thinking I'm going to die. I've got a 13, 14-month-old son at the time, or no, he was 11 months when I died, or when I wrecked, 11 months. And
yeah, that's,
so I'm sitting here
kind of fucked up to hear you say when I died,
dude. And you know what's crazy, man? I don't even realize I say stuff like that until somebody points it out, and like that's how I believed it, bro. Like I remember driving to Marie's, like you're like that event you're talking about, like Brad's on the phone with somebody, dude, and I'm just like got my head to the left, like trying not to let him see I'm fucking breaking down. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm like, what if it really is the last time I ever saw my son? You know what I mean? What if this really is the last time I ever see the Greenville boys and the Greenville crew, and what if this is the last time I see Hunter? And like that's the only reason I went. And I shouldn't have been at that place. You know what I mean? Like there was no reason for me to drive 13 hours. I was out of the hospital like for 20 days or something like that. It wasn't even 3 whole weeks yet.
Hold on. That may be true, but I may have heard a story that you were hanging gutters as well.
Yeah, there's that mentality though, that belief that I was going to die is the reason I was hanging them gutters. You know what I mean? And I think that's going to be a key point that somebody needs to hear whenever we're going through this, is that I was working day one. That I was working the day.
You're out.
That I was working day one. Now, it wasn't the best work. You know what I mean? It wasn't the most productive, and I didn't do a whole lot in that hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, but I was working day one, and it was because I really did believe that I may not make it, and there was a reality moment that I had walking out of the hospital that was like, I don't got nothing to leave my kids. Like that was the drive behind, going and buying the truck day one, and day two, we got a full functioning gutter company, and day three, I'm on the roof because storm hit, and day four, we sell like 40 in a day, and it's like, I'm walking around knocking doors with liver tubes and bowel tubes hanging out of me. And I'm like, I borrowed a buddy of mine's 4-wheeler so I could drive door to door instead of walk because it hurt too bad. Like, I mean, it was all because like I really believed I was going to die. And I knew I didn't have anything to leave my babies, I had, and that goes even deeper really in that scenario, man. It's like I hadn't seen my daughters, and God, at that time, man, it was 38, 39 months, that I hadn't seen my little girls. And at that time, I remember talking to my dad, man, and I was like, Dad, even if I could see him right now, I wouldn't, I wouldn't go see him, because I was like, I believed I was going to die, so that I didn't want to walk back in their life and back out again, And so it was just this mental, just trying to stay positive so the team kept driving, but watching them see me just kind of like wither away, like my liver was bad, so I was just
I don't want to derail this because it's going in a direction, but I just want to touch on something that you said. You said that you hadn't seen your girls for 38, 39 months. You, as far as you know, you're a walking dead man.
Yeah.
You've got this money. There's a lot of people who their purpose, or maybe it's because they don't have a purpose. Why 38 months? And you can go backwards and maybe talk about, who you were before, but why in that moment were you not out? Like, it reminds me of the song, I don't remember who it's by because I'm terrible at stuff like that, but Live Like You Were Dying maybe is the name of the song. uh I went skydiving,
Yeah, my girl.
why weren't you out skydiving or riding bulls or well, probably because you were in a lot of pain, but
Well, I mean, the reason that I wasn't, Brad, most of the world knows I'm pretty open with Brad, and Brad's my best friend, and he was like, dude, you need to see some of the world, and he was like, I always wanted to go to Dubai and stuff, but like in my mind, the way that I could have, my girls I was a meth addict. Okay, let's just jump right into that. Okay, so I was a meth addict for 3 years, and when I got clean, that doesn't mean that for a lot of people in the roofing world, there's a lot of addicts out there, man. And when you get clean, that doesn't mean everything's just perfect the next day, and you've got to realize that you hurt a lot of people, and you did a lot of bad things, and you have to let people forgive on their own time, and it's the only thing that you can do is just be somebody that they could possibly look at a second time, whenever they decide to see you again, whenever they decide to finally look at you in the eyes, And the reason I wasn't out there living, man, is because for me, my ultimate exit for me is to be able to leave my kids something that can set them up for life, right? Like my whole idea is that I want my babies, even though my little girls hadn't seen me in over 3 years, like I want them to have something to remember me by. And so we opened the whole company. I put money in accounts and trusts and stuff. I remember having people drive me to my lawyer's office to put money in trust funds and things. Like I was living every day preparing to die, and the only thing that I knew to do was work absolutely as hard as I could to make sure that this company that we had just opened had something in it, so that way a percentage of that could be theirs as they grew up, right? And so, yeah, I think there's probably a big misconception on what people think they would do if they thought they were dying from what they actually do. And I mean, I've been blessed with the people in my life that what I actually did just so happened to be something abnormal, like it just so happened to be something that it will outline the most important things in your life. That's what it did for me.
It's great. So I find myself sitting here listening to you, and I'm thinking, like, the day any one of us, every single person on earth, the day that we're born, there is an expiration date. We are literally dying. Like,
Yeah.
you go into the science of it, we're literally oxidizing. It's called age.
Daily.
And every single day we're creeping towards whatever that is. Some people happen to have disease or misfortune or accidents, whatever it may be, that kind of pushes that expiration forward. And it makes me think about like Marcus Aurelius and these Stoic philosophers, the quote "memento mori," which basically means remember death. They were telling us 2,000 years ago to think about our death constantly. Think about every single moment as if you were dying, and to see you having that reality. I hope it's a wake up call for anybody who's watching to be really intentional.
Man, the things that I've learned from Cornerstone and Hunter, and because I follow Hunter on every idea and journey he's got, like that, because there's just so much value in the way that dude carries life in general, like, and same thing with Brad. Brad's intentional in a lot of different ways, and I was blessed to have met them before something like that happened, because before that, man, I'll be honest with you, I may not have made it still. I mean, because I firmly believe that a lot of the reason that I made it through that is because it outlined the things that was the most important to me. And the only thing that I could think of was work. Like, go work, because I'm not going to go see my girls after 3 years and then walk out of their life in case I do die. You know what I mean? I don't want to leave them nothing at all. I don't want to not have something for them to remember me by, and I remember texting Caitlin and saying, hey, look, I've got this trust. I got to have you sign this paperwork because the money in it is going to be, you're going to be the beneficiary of this money until the girls get 18, right? Like that's going to, because that's the only way that I can support my babies from the grave. Right. And so that was like, whew, boy, the mentality that it did a lot to me. It did a lot of growing up in a short amount of time, and realizing that life is so much more than you're allowing it to be, but it can be over in an instant, because I don't even remember the wreck. I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And so,
well, dude, I want to know, thinking about what you're talking about now, we're kind of talking about like, okay, this is a guy who's thinking pretty deeply about the decisions he makes. He's being pretty intentional. Even before the wreck, you've been introduced to a handful of guys and a team. I've heard you talk about Cornerstone Construction and Brad and Hunter as like there's a love there. Like it's apparent, you carry it with you. But because I know, not just in the roofing and solar world, that there's a ton of addicts and a ton of people who've done bad, people who live in guilt and shame, people who they don't know what's possible for them. I think if we could do one thing here, I would like for you to talk about where you were before that.
okay.
Just set the stage that you weren't always $1 million a month guy.
Yeah. So, man, I'm not going to go back, 3 years old and be all weird about it, but I'll get into high school and outline a couple of things. Like, I had a good childhood, man, and I've got a mom and dad that I tried to live life by myself. Man, I had to go learn life the hardest way possible, and I don't know why I was always like that with my mom and them, but at 16, 17 years old, I'm gone and I'm trying to make life happen. I've got a point to prove, and I don't know what that point is. Right. And y'all remember what I just said right then. I had a point to prove, but I had no idea what that point was. Okay. And so I'm out trying to live life, man. And I'm in the military. I joined at 17. And that's when I met Brad, but Brad was my first commander in the Army. I was an 18-year-old private, and he was a super young a commander of a unit, and just so happened that's where we met. So I go on through the career. I was a distinguished honor graduate, like I said, and before, in high PT and super gung-ho for the Army, and I wanted to go to every school possible, and came back from AIT as like the only one. I got promoted from E1 to E3 while I was in training, right? Like that's how just gung ho I was. Like I was just, if it was Army, like I lived, breathed it, slept it, and so I get back and me and Caitlin ended up having our first little girl in 2015. Okay. In 2015, and everything was great. 11 months later, she's pregnant again. So 11 months later, we have our second girl, actually, so they're only 11 months apart. And we were doing great, but we had our problems. We met young, like we had the issues, and like we met super early to try to be falling in love and having kids. And
how old were you at this time?
Man, I met her, I was 18, and I was 22 when we had Jaylee, 23 when we had Kylie. And so at 23, about 6 months after Kylie was born, my second little girl, I I came home. We had a lot of problems. I was young and immature, and a lot of it was my fault, I assure you. And I came home from work one day and she was gone. You know, she had done packed up and left and took the girls with her. And I had never experienced loss in my life. Okay. And I know that sounds cliche, but I really hadn't. Like we'd lost some football games as, you know, quarterback and whatever. I'd lost some boxing matches on the regional, national level. And, but as far as the loss, I never experienced it. Right. Like I never lost anybody. And so that feeling at 23 years old, when my whole world was doing exactly what I was told to do, and that's what I was good at, right? I never learned how to make decisions in life because I wouldn't listen to my mom and dad, and I was always running from them. And then, you know, in the military, they just tell you what to do, and you just do it, you know. And if you do exactly how they do it, nothing more, nothing less, you're great, you know. And so that's what I got used to doing. And so when I had to go, when she left, I got out the military and I was lost, man. You know, I was lost.
So you were still in the military when you met her, or when you guys started having babies?
Very short amount of time after, yeah.
Then she left.
Yeah.
And you're, I guess, at this point, you have babies together.
Yeah.
And then you finished the military career.
Finished it, yeah, but to an extent. And so this is going to kind of tell you how the type of dude that I have as, you know, the best friend and the people in my life is that, you know, he was my first commander and he took me from E1 to E5, and then he kicked me out. You know, I made him kick me out. You know, so I had, after she left, I was working as a nighttime manager for a club downtown Little Rock. It's called Club Level, and you know, I had everything's accessible at a nightclub, man, you know, and I was just never that guy, you know, like it didn't matter to me what people did because I was just smart enough to not do it. You know, I cared enough about what I had in life and what the places I wanted to be, I saw myself being, to not dive into anything that those nightclubs were known for, you know. And, but then when you lose something like that and you lose everything, it's like losing your whole world in the night, man, you know, and that, I know a lot of people listening to this have been through that, you know, and they understand, and some people may not understand all the way. And it took me out, man. I mean, You're
talking about the first time you ever used.
No. I'm talking about losing Caitlin and my girls. Okay,
I got
you. It took me all the way out. You know, I mean, it bottomed me out. You know, and so I didn't care. You know, that's where that comes from. I didn't care about anything else in the world, and so when that substance was laid in front of me, right, I just didn't care enough to say no.
Yeah.
You know, that's all it was, man. And I'm a firm believer that when you do something, it all depends on, you know, where you're at in life when you do it, that's going to make the most difference in your life, right? And when I did it, I was at a point where I didn't care about anything else. And so it seemed to help, right? It was like magic. You know?
Yeah.
And I tried this substance, man, and I didn't think about her. And unfortunately, I didn't think about my kids either, you know, for the next 12 hours, you know, and that stuff just, when you're in a zone in life, man, that you're careless and heartless and you just don't have anything that really means you don't feel like you're close enough to anything for it to care about you either. It makes you numb, dude.
So as men, I know a lot of people listening are men. I can't speak from the perspective of women, but I can speak from my perspective. Like there is a lot of times when we don't know where we're going and we're lost, we just shut down. Like nothing matters.
I call it unplugging yourself.
That's a great way to put that. So this is not something I've spent a ton of time like thinking inwardly, sure, but like I've had relationship problems. I've certainly, you know, I don't have a phenomenal relationship with women. It goes back to grandma, mom. It goes to my first girlfriend, my ex-wife. Like I just have a little history, some of it self-inflicted. And I know as a result, I have trust issues. And that's what I recognize in myself. And I think it's triggers. There's different triggers for everybody, depending on your story and your circumstance. But like you said, we just unplug.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you were unplugged, you got on this substance, working security. What happens next in your world?
So, I was back then, man, I was a big dude. Now I was a real big dude, and I worked out, for a while and every day for at least an hour or two. And I was big. I was, like I said, I was security manager. I was really the manager of a team of bouncers, so I was big. And I tried this substance, man, and that 12 hours, I didn't think about her, them kids, right? And so as I start to come down, and the substance was meth, by the way. I'm wide open with it. I just, the substance is just a way to put it sometimes.
Yeah.
For that next 12 hours, man, I didn't think about them. So when I started to sober back up, right, and I started to regain, reality a little bit, first thing I thought about was her and my little girls, like, God, that depression and miserable feeling of like completely disconnecting from everybody. Felt, it just hit me all of a sudden again as soon as I started to sober up, right? So the only thing that I thought that was the only smart, logical thing to do was to get high again, and like, if I get high, I don't
Makes complete sense.
Yeah, I mean, it did at the time. It sounds crazy thinking back, knowing all I know now, and I wish I knew all I knew now, but I wouldn't change it. And I want that to be known. Like, I wouldn't change it. And so I always say all the time, it's kind of a joke a little bit, but when I sobered up, I got high one more time for 3 years, because I stayed that way. And there wasn't a minute of a day that I was awake that I wasn't high. And because that I wasn't going back to them feelings. And the problem about being numb is if you never went back to those feelings, that means you never dealt with them. So they're going to be there. They're going to be there the moment you sober up,
Sean, so obviously you've been sober now for some time, right?
Yeah, a little over 3 years. Yeah, June will be 4.
Okay, so when you decided to get sober, you obviously had to face some of those feelings.
Yeah, and so I didn't. I'll be honest with y'all, man. I didn't get clean, willingly. I got locked up, got in some trouble, and luckily there was a program going on. But it was probably the worst thing as far as emotionally to happen, because I had to deal with all them feelings of being disconnected and unplugged, completely disconnected from society. Right? I was in jail dealing with feelings from a girl from 3.5 years prior, right? Like, people, you're supposed to be over that by now, and I never dealt with it though. So I'm locked up, completely disconnected from society, trying to deal with the fact that I'm unplugged from the thing I love most, So it was very difficult. And since I got in trouble, I promise y'all, man, God has just laid out a path for me, man, because they started this program called the PACT program. It's a Peers Achieving Collaborative Treatment, right? It's just a program that's taught like guys exactly like me, like they used to do this substance. It took them all the way down through life. They have found a way out, found success, and now they walk through the front door of the jail instead of the back, like they walk through the front and open doors willingly, and the jailers just let them walk around freely because those guys are there to help us not come back, and so that was the big break for me, right? Like, I could listen to a counselor, I could listen to a doctor, I ain't listening to what you got to say. You probably know what you're talking about, but you ain't never been there, Yeah. And so as an addict, when you're stuck in the grips of like active addiction, I'm not listening to nobody, because especially somebody that hasn't been in those shoes, because I feel like you're just judging me at that point, and that's what a lot of the world doesn't understand is that, when we're in jail, man, we mean it when we say everybody does. We don't want to get high again. I'm never getting high again. It's a lot of talk, because that I'm never getting high again is a bold statement, right? But we mean it when we say it. We're locked up, man. We're like, we can't access it. It's when you get out that the big problem happens. And that's where that's my whole drive today. That's the whole point of all of this. The whole point of this. Of having the platform and speaking and telling my story publicly, because I assure you that I don't want my girls, little girls to watch this one, knowing that I'm fixing to tell them that I didn't see them for 3 years and that their daddy was a meth head. And, I don't want that. That's not what I'm striving to do, but yeah. I do know that your story is someone else's survival guide, and that is the truth regardless. Okay. It doesn't matter what you've been through. My mom has been through some things bad, and she's great with women, with women and those issues. She's great with that because she's willing to talk to those people and tell her story, mine and addiction, and being purpose driven and how to get through the grips of, dude, I was homeless 4 years ago. Homeless. I'm like, when I got out of jail in 2019, I met Cornerstone July of 2020, right?
Yep.
Living in a Kim Free house, man. I didn't even have my own place. I did it all. We literally trained and built the freaking plans to Cornerstone, Arkansas on an Airbnb couch, right? Like, we didn't have nothing. And so your story and being able to tell it publicly very well may be the reason that some 13-year-old kid that I met at Cornerstone Kids in Greenville, South Carolina, doesn't go down the same path I went,
Dude, so I want to touch on something. I won't give any names because it's a private environment when we go to these revolt retreats. But while we were there was a gentleman, another addict, and then I think to some degree we're all addicted in some ways. But this guy changed the name on his business card, right? And I remember thinking like feeling for him, like, damn, that's tough. But I could not say to him, man, you got to own that. But then here comes Sean out of left field. You checked him up, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Why did you check him up? Why did you tell this guy who's got a broken past that he needs to put his name on a card? And then for people who are listening, there's sales professionals, there's business owners, there's people who are going to see this and who are going to listen that have broken past and that guilt and that shame.
Yeah.
Why are you sharing your story publicly right now? Like, obviously we get it, but I want to hear it from your perspective. Why'd you tell him to put his real name back on his business card?
So, that guy there, everybody feels that, I know when people Google my name, because people do, that they see a rap sheet, man. And I remember that feeling of being scared to go public with anything, like being scared. I remember when I first talked to Brad and Walker and them, I was like, man, I don't know if I should really be tagging Cornerstone and stuff because, it may very well, like hurt your reputation, man, and I'm new, and like blah, 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 blah. And they were like, dude, shut up. Like they were just like, get out, get over it, And so when he was saying that, man, I remember that's why, and Hunter may not even remember those conversations, but I remember all those little conversations. Like those conversations mean more to me than the world, and so I remember as he was telling that story about how he changed the name on his card because he lost a job because the person that he was telling a job to Googled his name and found out that he was, an addict, fresh in recovery, and didn't no longer trusted him because of his past, as if they were perfect, and as a man, remember one thing you got, one thing you really got, and it's your name. Okay, it's your name, right? And when you start your family and you get married and you have your kids, them babies got your name. That's what they get, and if you are so worried and down on yourself and lacking the self-worth enough to put your name on your own card because of the views of society has on you, right? It's just gonna push you right back into the game. It's gonna push you right back to the streets. It's gonna push you right back to addiction because at some point that belief that the belief of what society wants to say is gonna make you believe it yourself, right? And so F that, man. Like I don't care if the person if I'm sitting in a homeowner's house, bro, I sell jobs based on my story. You know what I mean? And if you want to use somebody else because I'm an addict, then you need to go on ahead because you ain't my customer. That's just how it is. The society's changing, man. You know, like
have you found that homeowners reject you when you tell your story? Like obviously you don't never you said.
no, and not now. Used to, you know, used to whenever I would tell it sometimes, and then I would get back in the truck and be like, dang, I maybe shouldn't have told them, you know, and but I'm gonna tell it, you know, and I'm gonna tell it regardless. And here's why: is because if I don't tell it, somebody may die. It's that serious, you know. And your son, you know, your daughter, and this is what I tell people all the time when I'm talking to homeowners like you got kids that are babies, man. All it takes is one time, and then you're going to be calling me to save that kid's life. You know, you're going to be calling me to save your daughter's life. You're going to be, you know, you're going to be calling people like me that's been there and that understand what that person's going through, because you can't relate with them. You know, you can. God didn't send perfect people, man. You know, and let me tell you something. I've never met a person in this world that's not an addict. Never once. Okay, it doesn't. It's just what you're addicted to. You know, the people that were addicted to substance abuse are the ones that get the addict term as a negative stigma, right? But when you really talk about anybody in life, I don't know anybody that's not an addict. You know,
Yeah,
I don't. And the main reason for him was my purpose, something that I found through my why with Hunter and all of these ideas and things that I've chased. The Fearless 44 is it used to be to get my girls back, you know, and I remember when Hunter told me one time, he said, man, that's not your purpose, that's your responsibility. He said, you had them kids and that's your responsibility to do what you have to do as a father, right? That's not your why though, because then when that ends and that's over with, you're gonna be stuck. Right. And I didn't understand what he was saying then. And so I kept that get my girls back as my drive. Every day I got up and my purpose. And this is what I got to do. And then when I got him back, like, I was like, oh, crap. You know, like I'm just a little bit stuck. You know, Hunter was right, you know. And so I'm like, I'm a little bit stuck. And so then I realized, you know, that my purpose has been there all along. I did it with the whole company. Okay. And I didn't even know I was doing it. But a lot of people that come out of addiction, they work directly with recovery, you know, and they work directly as sponsors and peer recovery specialists and things like that, of people that are going to work directly within the grips of people that are high, you know, that are trying to get their life right. And it's just not meant for me. Okay. I get my heart attached to people way too easily. And when that happens, there's a 98% fail rate in recovery, man, you know, and there's only 2% of the world, and that statistic has shown across decades, that get in recovery and stay clean, you know, and stay there. And so mine was, I kind of look at things from a different perspective, and I don't even know where this perspective really came from. But to me, you know, we've got laws in Arkansas where felons and addicts can work for the state government now. You know, like when we're talking about reform, Arkansas is ahead of the game, you know, when it comes to stigma breaking. And that started with Jimmy McGill, the guy who started the program. And to me, I'm like, the people that can change things like that, the people that can change laws, and the people that can provide opportunities, and the people that can make a difference in someone's life that just needs a chance, are people that's never been high.
Yeah.
They're people that's never been addicts. They're people that's never been through the grips like that. They're people that's never done any of the things that I did. And that's who provides those opportunities for people like me to just get that shot to go make it, you know? And so if you can change the perspectives of people that's never been addicts, right? If change the perspective of how the society views you when you come back into the world to try to be a productive member of society, if you can change those views and change that stigma of once an addict, always an addict, that's when real change happens. So
I have a question actually for my perspective, because I've in the past, you know, I've done some drugs, but never got hooked.
right.
And now I'm a business owner, and I've certainly seen and interviewed people who are either actively going through some stuff or are right on the backside. One guy in particular, I know he's fallen off the bandwagon a couple times in the year or two that I've known him, and I follow him on Facebook. So my question is this: I don't know, like I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this. Like ADD and ADHD are something that I was coined as being negative, and I was labeled. It's the closest thing that I can relate to. But it took me growing up and figuring out from meeting other people with ADD and ADHD to realize it was a superpower. And I'm sitting here thinking about what you have, and like this sounds fucked up a little bit, but I'm a little bit envious that you have found your purpose, like that you have been rocked to your core and you have seen what the bottom looks like, because now your drive, I guess if there were other addicts, I'm sure there are, if other people who are dealing with this are listening, like do you ever look at your past and your addiction like almost a superpower, like it made you who you are,
Dude,
you are now?
you remember when I said, I pointed out one line that I said that I wouldn't change nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's where I was headed with this. Okay. That I wouldn't change a thing about being an addict. I'm a better man now than I ever was before I knew what a drug was. You know, and I'm talking about I wasn't the best dude. Like I was, I was blessed with athleticism and blessed with the gift of gab, and blessed with being able to have people that, that no matter what I've done in life, I've been able to have people follow. And so until I was an addict, until I had that humbleness, that humble reminder, like, hey, dude, you may have thought you was on top of the world, but look at you now. Like it created this guy. Like this guy doesn't exist unless I was an addict. This guy doesn't exist if addiction wasn't real. Okay.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of a superpower in a way. Like I think that you have a lot of people that think they know their purpose. I think you have a lot of people that think that they have an idea what their purpose should be, right? The difference that you see in me and those people are that I know what mine is. That there's no ifs, there's no ands, there's no buts, there's no maybe it's this, there's no maybe it's that, there's no oh yeah, it's the change, the impact. Let people that were never high. Yeah. No, I know what mine is, and that I'm telling you is the difference in what you see with me and what you see with people that have been there before and making it, right, but not driven, because that the word driven is exactly what it is. It'll drive you all the way to the top. I mean, it will.
Well, I think about this because I've hired hundreds of sales professionals, and I've been a study of psychology for 17 years. I look and I watch people. I study empathy and emotion. Like I constantly, like I hired a therapist for myself just so I could learn more about myself so that I could relay that out and use it to continue to push sales professionals forward. When there's a quote, all right? This quote is, change is only possible on the precipice of destruction. When you can use that in a sales scenario, why would somebody change? Transformational sales, they have to go all the way to the bottom. They have to burn their hand enough times that they're ready to stop burning their hand. So when I rewind and look back at all of these people's lives, sales professionals, the ones that stand out to me are people who've been through absolute pain, people who are athletes in the past, people who have broken some kind of a record, whether it's they played the fastest piano song in high school, but they broke a record. It could be they were the number one quarterback and took the team to the championship. Whatever, won the spelling bee, but they have some kind of an accolade. And then I see people who have addictive personalities. I see people who I don't know what it is. I'm not a doctor and I don't know all of the vocabulary, but whatever it is that makes people addicted, there's something about it. When you see them leave the drugs, the alcohol, the women, the porn, when they leave that behind, they attach to this need to win, this need to every day, make another phone call, make another phone call, one more appointment, climb one more roof.
Yeah.
So
it's obsession. Okay. A lot of when people get high or they become an addict or they've been an addict their whole life, like I have been. Okay. I'm telling y'all, man, I've been an addict my whole life. I just didn't know it. Okay. You're obsessive. Like if you care about it, if you're passionate about it, if you have, and that's the thing, that's the difference between addicts and like real, true, defined obsessive addicts, right? Like when I care about something, there's nothing else in the world. There is nothing, you know, and if you notice that when you're talking about somebody coming out of a substance abuse addiction, they're always addicted to something still. It doesn't matter. Okay. Mine was the gym. Okay. Actually, it started with Narcotics Anonymous, right? Like I went to 90 meetings in 90 days, like they suggested. And then I went to 2 a day, and then I went to 2 and 3 a day. And then I went to 2 a day again. And like, I obsessed over the fact that this is the only way to stay clean. Right. And then I was like, wait a minute, you know, like I'm obsessive here. I'm spending all my time right now. And I needed that at that point, but all my time's going there and it ain't producing nothing for me to beat somebody, you know?
Yeah.
And so like at some point you got to realize like you get clean here. You don't leave it. You don't leave it in the past. You know, you got to have that. But at some point you have to realize what's going to change you, you know? And as I transition, then I become addicted to the gym because I was a society freak, right? Like I'm like, oh, if I lose any weight, they're gonna think I'm high, you know. Like who cares? Who cares? Who quit caring about what society thinks? Like that was the biggest breakthrough for me, is because I'm like yoked up, can't move. I'm like trying to play ball like this, you know, like it's just insane. And but it was because if I lost any weight, they're gonna think I'm high, you know, and that's something that you have to deal with as an addict, man. Is anytime anything happens in your life, right, that's not perfection. Oh, he's high again. Oh, he's high again. You know, and he's done slipping up, you know, and it's like, I don't got to prove that no more. You know what I mean? If you knew me when I was an addict and you know me now, you know I ain't high. You know, like I was a homeless addict that drove a motorcycle in January because I was afraid the cops were going to chase me. You know, like it just doesn't make any sense, you know? And like now you find yourself obsessing over everything. Okay. And I have to watch it pretty bad because I mean, when we first started Cornerstone, man, I was working from 6 a.m. to midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and getting up again because we didn't have nothing. We didn't have wrap trucks, no office, no website, no nothing, you know. And and I obsessed over it bad, you know. And it for a long time, and it cost me relationships, and it cost me, you know, like you know, it just then I got the motorcycle, right? And then that motorcycle, man, that motorcycle was the closest thing that I had found sober. To reach that adrenaline punch, you know, and so I get this bike that's just retarded fast, man, and doesn't make any sense for anybody to own, and now it's not fast enough for me to get the adrenaline rush, so now I've got to do it that fast on the back wheel, right? And I obsessed in that, and it was that fast, man, like bought bike, going 190, oh, it doesn't do nothing for me no more. Go 150 on the back wheel, you know, like it was that fast, you know, and that's the addictive personality. That's that want for that feeling, that push. That I mean, when I get off the bike, man, I could be super pissed off at you, bro, and I get on that bike and I get off, and I don't even remember why I'm mad.
Yeah,
you know, like that was what the bike was for me, and I've rode since I wrecked, man. You know, like I've rode since the wreck, and it's a different feeling now for sure, you know, but. That's the obsession. That's what people is. And so when I found that I had a point to prove, so that's why I started to obsess. And I realized I was scared to death when I started with Cornerstone, man. Like, holy crap, commission only. If I don't,
did you have any sales experience? Like, where did you get your sales?
Man,
experience?
I sold a little bit at Car Lot. You know what I mean? I sold a little bit on car sales, and I had worked for another roofing company before, just not doing the sales part. I was subcontracting. I was doing like all the underneath the roof installs for the gutters and things like that, siding and fascia. And I had never done outside sales, you know, like that was the big change for me. And when I started with Cornerstone, it was kind of a blessing that I didn't have no other option, you know, like I didn't have no option but to make this thing work, man. Because if you miss payments on your fees and your fines and stuff, man, you going down. They're gonna come get you. And I wasn't going back. You hear me? I had done spent too much time. I wasn't fuck that. I was not going back. And so when I first started, it was like, man, we don't got no office. We don't got no wrap trucks. I'm in this 01 Ford F-150 squeaking down the damn road. You hear me from a mile away. And, and it's like, I remember Walker and Hunter pulled up first time. They're like, God dang, get this man a truck. You know what I mean? Like it was that bad,
Yeah.
But I didn't have the time. I didn't have the ability to not make this thing work, and so I started obsessing over how to be a salesperson, right? And I started obsessing over how to get past the door. And I obsessed over, this is how you have to do this. And it worked, right? Like I spent hours and hours and hours and hours on YouTube listening to Roof Strategist and Ryan Groff and Door-to-Door University guys and Chuck Toki and Dale Childress and all these guys and Becca Switzer. And I literally built a cornerstone sales process with my team off of pieces that I could do out of everybody. Like, just smash it together, and here we are. But I obsessed over it. And if you walk around the state of Arkansas and you mention the word cornerstone, people are going to think I own it. And it's because I carried it like I do. I don't. It doesn't say owner on my Facebook page. I've never told anybody I own this place. Like, I just carry it to the point. I believe in it so much, and I'm married to the brand, right? Like I promise you, and like I carry it to the point that people just really think it's mine.
Dude, that's in my opinion, the number one most important thing for a salesperson's success is belief. They gotta have conviction. They gotta really, truly, truly believe. So culture, and there's so many different things we can unpack just off of what you just said, but I think that belief right there is the number one thing. So what would you say? How did you go from that to $1 million months? Like, it doesn't sound like it was luck.
No, I think
in some ways, just the right pieces through your life fell together and you became this Terminator. But
I don't want to say that it was just given. I don't want to say that I didn't work hard for it. I think there's a big a lot of people will view this and just see as like it's overnight success, right? Like, oh, just bam, it happened, and that's dumb. Like, that doesn't make any sense, like it just doesn't. And the people that have had real good success in this industry are going to understand that. Like, Chuck Toki, that dude worked and 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 worked. And finally, bam, like it's all the behind the scenes stuff that you don't see, like like I said, the countless hours of time that I spent. I'm huge on self-education with my team, man, because like I can teach you my way. I can teach you how I talk to people at the door, but you're not Sean, right? Like I'm not Robert. I'm not Posey. Like you can sell just as much as I sell, dude, your way. And you got to figure out how to manifest your way at that door, because it's comfort and belief is what people are buying. They're not buying what you're doing. They're buying why you do it, but when you grasp that, like it changes everything, and another thing that helped me is that when I've maintained obsession. Like that's the hard thing for an addict, man, is that they'll think they care about something and they obsess over it momentarily and temporarily in life, and then they get burnt out, right? And because it's no longer providing them with the feeling that they need, right? And that's an addict. They needed whatever that feeling is that they're chasing in life to feel good about themselves, right? That's what they're chasing. And if it no longer gives it to them, then they are going to be burnt out. As to where with me, the difference is that I get the feeling regardless with this place, because it's who I am. Like, it's me. I have thank God, found where I belong. And because of that, and because of the opportunities that Hunter and Walker and Brad gave me, right, I'll never let them regret it.
Yeah.
And,
keep going.
And so with that, like, from right there at knocking 500 doors in the very beginning and getting my first yes and asking them if they're sure, like a weirdo. Like I was at this door, sweating and stuff, and I'm like,
Sure.
I finally got this first yes, and I'm like, are you sure? You know, and I'm like, I walk away from the house, I'm like, damn, I shouldn't say that. You know what I mean? Like, it's just bad. But I got so used to those, man, that like I was like, it's just gonna be another no. And so when they told me yes, I was like shocked. You know, I was like, and I think it was really just this old sweet lady that was like this big giant dude sweating on my doorstep. Let him do what he wants to do, you know. And so I was like, from that to $1 million months is just there's a lot that goes into that, man. You know, I could explain that for a day, but the short version of it is this: you know, you self-educate, you listen to the people that are doing better than you are, right? And you surround yourself with people that you want to be like, and those three things combined will develop you into a monster, bro. Like,
dude, the only thing that I would add to that is repetition. Well, you just said about 500 doors. You said you studied all of the most well-known people who train roofing sales. You studied them relentlessly.
Yeah.
So you could study and study and study and study, but if you don't go knock the door, you're not going to figure out your style. Like and what's crazy, you'll hear me, if anybody listens to me at all for any period of time, you'll hear me say that every single sales training out there today is a regurgitation of other sales trainings.
Absolutely.
It's all, dude, human beings have been the same for the last 5,000 years. And
I don't want to be a sales coach. I don't want to be a sales coach trainer dude. You know what I mean? Like y'all all teaching the same thing I am. Y'all all teaching the same thing each other are. Like, I'm not against sales trainers and sales coaches. I'm just that I'm learning the same thing from all of you. You just got a different swagger. That's all it, you know, that's all it is. You know?
But that's the one thing that I'd add to the back of your three pieces of advice there is you've got to do the training and then you have to actually apply it, go get your reps in. Because if you're trying to sell like somebody else, if you don't have the repetition, you'll never find your style.
Yeah. Man, if you're trying to sell like somebody else, if you try to sell like somebody else, you're gonna fail. Because people aren't buying what you do, they buy why you do it, man. And it doesn't matter. I can get at somebody's front door and I could stutter, and because that pisses me off. Like I'll tell you, man, when I stutter, bro, I'm instantly mad. You know, I'm like, instantly mad. I'm furious. I'm like, you know, I've been trying this so hard, but it's like I turn it into a joke, man, because that's really who I am. I like comedy. I like to have fun, man. I didn't live through all this shit, man, to not have fun in life. You know, I didn't live through all this shit to not enjoy every valuable conversation I can have. You know, and I think if you walk to somebody's door and you're not understanding that conversation has value, regardless of if you get to sell or not, okay, I think that's a lot of reason why people aren't selling jobs. Okay, is because they're at doors not understanding that the first thing I talk about to somebody is not buy this roof or install solar, man. I try not to even say the words. Like, I don't even tell them who I am. You know, like I don't say I'm Sean with Cornerstone Construction. Like, that's not my first words out of my mouth because it says I'm here to sell you some shit. Like, and it doesn't, you know, so I mean, but if they walk up to that door as their last chance to have a valuable conversation that day or their last chance to learn something from that person, you're going to teach yourself more about who you are and the value of dialogue than anything else can teach you.
Dude, so one of my purpose statements is, I don't know if it's a purpose statement, but something that's important to me, man, is I want people to show up to my funeral. That's it. And preferably without pitchforks and torches. You know? But so Hunter actually challenged me. I told him that one day, and he was like, "Yeah, but who? Who do you want to show up to your funeral?" And I was like, I had never thought that far, that next layer. I think that's one of Hunter's superpowers is he takes everything another layer deeper. So to me, it was people who I've had a chance to impact, somebody that I've created a positive feeling, moment, impact in their life. Those are the ones I want to show up to the funeral. So that extra layer gave me the thought of, damn, every interaction that I have is a chance for me to create that impact. So what that now, one of the first things I do with a sales team is we start studying intention. We start to ask the reps these questions because they've never, most people don't have a motorcycle accident and meth addiction and this sort of stuff that's going to force them into figuring out what's important to them. So we drag it out of them through a few different exercises, and what you find is words like uh, caring. How do you want to be viewed? Caring. What's the most important value that you'd like people to remember you by? Integrity. Okay. Now, if you were to put that in the daily activity, the thing that you spend the most time doing, your job, and you're a sales rep, every conversation that you have, if caring, and that's a real example from one of my current sales reps, they want to be viewed as caring. Okay, so if I see you kicked up, I'm gonna go real. Please don't hate me if you're watching this, but I walk in, you got your feet up on the desk, you got your head back, you're taking a call. I don't think you're being caring.
Right.
I don't see the behavior of you care about that customer.
Right.
So I think everything that you've kind of touched on here, it all leads back to intention. It leads back to clarity and figuring out who the hell you are.
I think that this is going to be valuable to that conversation right there. And immediately, this is how in tune with who I am that I really am. Like it's crazy when you say that, because it just hit me like, damn, I really am in tune with what the hell I want to do. And like when you said, who do you want at your funeral, right? Like I want an entire half of a room of people who's never done a drug, and I want an entire half room of people that are just absolutely wrecked, right? Like, because I do, and because these people need these people, right? And these people need these people, right? Like they don't even know it. When Brad hired me, he didn't realize that I was going to be the key reason why Arkansas made it.
Yeah.
I was a 1 year clean, got nothing but an $11 an hour job at a commercial glass installer, and no idea that I was going to be the key reason that the Field and Cornerstone brand ever got out there. He needed me, and I would not have been able to do it without him.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's what I would want. Like I want to be the connection from the addiction world to people that can make it, that can make the change. That's who I am, man. And I've done that with Cornerstone. There's an entire company. Greenville, South Carolina didn't have no addicts, y'all. Like they didn't have no addicts up there at Cornerstone. You know what I mean? That really, when Brand hired me, they were like, oh God, you know what? Weird. I've changed the entire company's look at addicts. Basically, all of Arkansas's addicts. Okay, and you know, our branch manager's not, and Brad wasn't, and there's a couple of other guys that I've got from, you know, different areas and different Sunpro reps and different places here and there that weren't ever addicts, right? But 60-70% of us in Arkansas are addicts, and we've I mean, I love Greenville to death, but we've doubled their numbers. You know what I mean? With like half the people. So like it's just because we have like there's a drive. Now right now we're struggling a little bit on the team wise. There's a little bit of a downtime as winter's coming, you know what I mean? But like addicts have done that. Like addicts did 12 million this year. You know, and it's like
that's where you guys are at, just out of your office.
Solar and roof combined, yeah.
That's pretty stellar.
It's not bad, man. I mean, last year we did 3, so
there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I wonder what next year is going to be like.
Well, we're gonna ramp it up again, you know.
Hey, just because you told me that you take stuff like this to heart, bet you won't do 20.
Hey, man, like I've come to find that you know, I've done that twice with Cornerstone. You know, when Tony did the whole I'm going to beat you in solar for February, and I was like annihilated him by like $90 million or something like that, right? I'm just kidding, no, like 900,000 or something like that. And so I'm just gonna just keep it short. It was 900K or something. And then, you know, last year, 2021 February, right? It was like 17 inches of snow on the ground in Albert Latham, Okay, do me and dude talk all the time. He's super relatable, and he's got a way of being like this big ass, just super good listener, dude. It's weird, right? And so it's weird. He's kind of odd stuff, but I call him, man, and he was like, bro, you can't get 20 by the end of February. It's like the 21st. I hadn't sold nothing. I just had a breakout month of January. I just took over DSM. I'm trying to figure it out. And so I sold 28 that week. And he was like, do what? Like 28 jobs. There's 17 inches of snow on the ground, Posey. Like I'm driving this truck out there sliding to people's houses, like selling ice dams and stuff, because I'm like, one, I'm going to get them jerseys, because Cornerstone was going to sponsor our softball team if I sold 20. And so, but then he said I couldn't, so I sold 28. Like I take it to heart, but it's a negative thing too, man. You have to be careful with that, because I turned my back on the team twice doing that.
Yeah.
Like when I did that $1 million month, like I turned my back on the roofing team completely, and thank God for Madison, because Madison stepped in them shoes for a month. You know what I mean? She stepped in them shoes again for me while I was in that hospital bed. Madison was one of my best closers personally as a salesperson or a recruiter. And I say that because if you're a sales manager and you're hiring people and you don't think that you got to close that person, you're wrong. And so Madison's been my best close yet, and she's one of those people that has a past like mine, and she's number 3 in the company. And it's amazing to me. But you have to be careful with that obsession. That obsession of proving people wrong.
Well, Sean, man, it's 11 a.m. I didn't want to kill this at an hour because we're having a good conversation, but I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
The title of the show, Sales Professionals Give.
Right.
G.I.V.E, growth, impact, values, and excellence. That's what we're about. That's what we're pushing. That's the way that we're going to create those people who show up to the funeral, people we've made an impact on. Whether it's you giving back to your community, whether it's you giving to your team, whether it's you giving yourself to the homeowners you're working with, whatever it is, I want to know, what does it mean to you to give?
To give means to, in my world, right? It's just as selfish as it is unselfish to give. Okay. And for me, the reason I say that is because I only keep what I got by giving it away. Right. And when I do these podcasts, I did one with Chuck and I've done one with you now. And when I get up and talk in front of people, I'm learning just as much as you are, man. I'm learning just as much as the audience is. And a lot of that is because if you don't talk about something, you forget it, and something that's been very valuable to me is that every time I teach somebody something about recovery, and every time I talk to somebody about something in sales or how to do this, I remind myself that I do know this stuff, right? Like I do know this. And every time I have these conversations, it brings it back up to the forefront of my mind, and I can not forget it, and I can live the way I'm teaching, So that's what giving back is. Giving back is the only way you keep what you got.
Sean, man, I'm grateful to know you as a friend. I'm grateful to have you as the very, very first ever Sales Pros Give.
It's gonna be huge.
I'm super, super grateful for you, man. I appreciate you coming out and taking the time away from your team and away from your goals, away from your girls and your family. Thank you for pouring into my people.
Yeah, man.
Let me know if there's anything.
Thanks for having me. It's cool to go from where I used to be, man, just be recognized enough to be invited to something like this, like it's that right there simply changes views of people that's never been an addict. What's your final words? What would you give to last words? If I had to give you some last words, man, it would just be wake up with the drive that you know what the intention is, that you know what the purpose is behind every move you make, and don't be afraid to fall short, because you will. Growth is be better today than you were yesterday. It doesn't mean be perfect. So awesome, man. Appreciate you very much. All right, buddy. We'll see you soon. Later, man.